So, let's not review a game in a linear fashion based on first impressions and expectations. That apparently causes problems. Doom Eternal. I saw a poll posted pretty much everywhere, and of all the games I could have purchased, you maniacs decided I should get Doom Eternal. And not just that, but the whole enchilada, the $90 version. I mean, about 20 hours or so later, I'm ready to write a review instead of writing it as I play the game. I even 100%ed every level on Ultra Violence so people can't use playing on an easier difficulty against me. Doom Eternal is set 8 months after Doom 2016 ended, making this Doom 2017 for those of you playing at home. The UAC has continued to let demons storm their facilities, and because they own so much of the Earth, I think, they at least have their hand in so much of the tech of the 22nd century, they've opened the gates to let the demons create hell on Earth. The Doom Slayer, from his flying Fortress of Doom, readies his pistol, shotgun, and descends to, honestly, take your pick. To right what's gone wrong, and from there, the plot gets really convoluted. The Maker race, essentially this game's version of biblical angels, have some sort of deal with the demons to cleanse the earth to harvest the argent energy of the souls of the damned to keep their civilization afloat. The UAC is maybe or maybe not in cahoots with the Maker race. The remaining Night Sentinels turn on the Doomslayer for destroying their leaders for letting this happen to the earth, and look, all you need to know is that you shoot things. You have a gun, you shoot the things, and then when the demons flash it in orange, you can bop his head into his shoulders and run. You can try to piece together this plot if you really want to. In my eyes, it just gets worse the more scrutiny you put it under. Don't. If you played Doom 2016, you know how this goes. You shoot some guys until you begin a canned animation, you play that animation and use the confetti they explode into to perform more canned animations on more enemies. Repeat until the level is over. But now you get a choice of like 6 canned animations. Up front, the game pushes you to use glory kills to get your health, the chainsaw to get ammo, later you get a shoulder-mounted flamethrower that's used to collect armor from ignited enemies. The flames do no damage otherwise. You get 2 types of grenades that actually have some utility as crowd clearers and fight pausers, respectively. You get to use the key thingy from the last game, and of course the BFG. But what about the Doomslayer's melee attack? How about we give this zombie a whack and... Oh. Okay, hear me out. Concrete walls, vents, flesh. Yeah, the shove was nerfed tremendously in this game, though you can supercharge it if you score enough glory kills. The blood punch deals a ton of damage and has a pretty staggering area of effect, but don't even think of trying to punch somebody without it. All in all, this combat system's fine. Doom is best in my opinion when it's a simple thing done brilliantly. It doesn't need me juggling half a dozen cooldowns to feel good, but it gets into a groove much faster than it did in 2016, and the end result is that it pretty much feels solid from the get-go. Enemies take way more punishment, so you have a reason to continually pummel them. Your ammo supplies are scarce. You ended the game with only 4 more shotgun shells than you started the last game with. That's any indication. So you need to chainsaw enemies pretty regularly. And in general, item pickups are scarce and usually don't offer enough of a return to actually let you have the upper hand in combat. It's a pretty big shame, honestly, as this arsenal feels awesome with the infinite ammo cheat on. We'll talk cheats in just a second. It's such a great... Everything is great. Every weapon has a role, whether it's getting an enemy ready to glory kill or tearing through them straight away. Glory kills kind of feel like a part of the flow instead of a particularly overzealous animator trying to get recognition. And each enemy fits a particular role, save for imps, gargoyles, and prowlers. They're all kind of the same thing. Every piece of the puzzle clicks together, but with finite ammo, it just feels like you're continually fighting the game and trying to play it. Every minute or so, you're pressing one of your canned animation buttons to continue playing it for another minute. And I never wound up in a position where I could not progress or was entirely out of options, but I did end up blowing myself up with my own rocket launcher after exhausting shells, cells, and bullets on more than one occasion. This also extends to the chainsaw, which only holds 3 gallons of gas, and most non-fodder enemies require 3 gallons to chainsaw. And often don't drop more than chainsawing 3 individual enemies, or hell, chainsawing 1 enemy, so just chainsaw the fodder, I guess. That's nice. The Crucible can only delete 3 enemies before running out of charge and needing to be refilled by little sword icons scattered in late game, and this also includes the Argent cells the BFG and Unmaker run off of. I want you to take a guess. How many BFG blasts do you think you can fire off before being completely out of ammo? No! Really? Guess. Shout an answer out right now in front of your screen. Was it 3? I bet it was 3, and the answer is no. You're being way more generous in this game. You get 2 BFG blasts before you need to grab more Argent cells. You get 2. The Unmaker can fire off 1 cell at a time for 3 lasers, and I found that to be a way better return on your investment. But I really can't say for certain how the damage levels stack up. I only used it twice, once each on the last 2 boss fights, because it's not worth using otherwise, because again, ammo is so frickin' scarce. And for anybody a little upset that I'm talking about the Unmaker, the second level tells you that the Unmaker is in this game. Anyways, back to cheats. They're one of the many types of collectibles you'll scavenge during your time in the game. Each map is massive, and trying to collect everything in one usually takes about an hour, which had me personally wishing for double the levels but each half this size, but it gets easier on repeat playthroughs. But man, oh man, do you get a lot out of it. Codex entries to explain the lore of the world, rune tokens to spend to upgrade the Praetor suit, crystals that boost your health, armor, and ammo, vinyl records containing music from past id games, including the likes of Commander Keen and Quake, paired with some particularly ridiculous metal album art. My grand prize goes to Keen's You've Gotta Eat Your Vegetables, which looks like this. Can we stick that in the corner of the screen for, I don't know, 3 minutes? Just so you can soak it in. It's so good. And 14 floppy disks that contain an installation of the Ultimate Doom, as well as a myriad of cheat codes to spice up return trips to missions in the level select. All the upgrades, the aforementioned unlimited ammo, permanent versions of each power-up, and even ridiculous stuff like a party mode that replaces gore sounds with cartoon sound effects and blood with confetti, and also the QuakeCon mode, which films Doom Eternal in front of a live studio audience. And these cheats don't hamper progression in the slightest. You can't complete a specific challenge in some of the levels when you have cheats on, but everything else stays. If you can't complete a challenge in one playthrough, turn on some cheat codes and run back through it. I used the quad damage one to wrap up this game, and it's so cathartic. Having cheats on lets you complete challenges easier and gives you a boost in levels you might be stuck in, though make sure to disable them if you're going to be collecting keys to the Slayer Gates. Slayer Gates are expert-level challenger rooms containing enemies you might not have met yet who are ready and willing to tear the Doomslayer apart before he can do the same. These are frantic fun, and they're not really difficult, they're just a little overwhelming. You have to keep moving. And completing all of them unlocks the Unmaker from Doom 64 as an alternative to the BFG. Again, after level 2 the game tells you this provided you beat that Slayer Gate, and it's not particularly difficult. If you're playing on an easier difficulty or have a little more experience with the modern Doom, you'll probably complete that one. Also, if you're playing on Extra Lives mode, Slayer Gates are not a cakewalk, but they're way easier. Yeah, Extra Lives in a Doom game. Technically, in my opinion, this should be Wolfenstein's territory, as Doom just booted you back to the start of the level with just a pistol if you died. But in execution, the Extra Lives feature makes the Doomslayer canonically too angry to die. When you hit 0 health when you have an extra life in tow, the Doomslayer just keeps on fighting, temporarily invincible to let you get your bearings and maybe extract revenge on the foe who did you in. I'd rather take this system over continually reloading at a checkpoint not making progress, but I do have a couple qualms with the system at the end of the day. If you run out of lives, you go back to the last checkpoint, but you don't get your spent lives back, nor do you get an extra in reserve. You have to press on until you can find another life, or exit out of the campaign to replay a level like Hell on Earth or Ark Complex to farm for extra lives, or just grin and bear it. There were some challenges where I came so close to completing them, but then I died on my last life, and it just got way harder, and the next closest I got to beating it was attempt number like 12, when I finally did. It's a little janky. I get why you don't get your lives back after you reload at a checkpoint, but it makes this game feel a little more difficult and a little more inconsistent than it probably should. It's a divisive addition for sure. I don't mind the extra life system in most encounters, but it's mostly because it just streamlines the process of completing the game. Nor do I mind all the extra platforming in Doom Eternal. I get it, Doom Guy barely jumped in his DOS games, but this Slayer's not confined to a rocket-powered wheelchair like his past incarnations. He can jump and run around. It's like Super Mario. New to Doom Eternal is the ability to mount grooved walls and leap from them, climb up them, along with the ability to use yellow poles to swing to new heights and a wave dash button. At first, the dash ability seemed really out of place and, more importantly, out of character for Doom Guy. He moves fast, he doesn't wave dash. But in execution, the dodge acts a lot more like a combat roll in encounters. You use it to get away from an encounter, or make a very quick entry. It's kind of an in and outer, back and forth sort of button. It's used mostly in platforming challenges, but in combat is where the dash button really truly shines. And it offers a lot of flexibility in scaling environments. Now, if there was actually any reason to scale these environments. Most secrets aren't actually secret, instead being a giant glowing crack in a wall that you bust into to get an item. And the platforming in this game almost never becomes particularly precarious or dangerous. Maybe at worst requiring 1 or 2 attempts with a pretty forgiving consequence for falling down a bottomless pit. You lose like 10 or 15 health. And if you have armor, you lose that first. Most environment objects that seem just barely out of reach are actually out of reach. There's no secret trick or advanced tactics to get to these areas faster. You pretty much gotta wait until you activate the right, event flag before you can progress. If you ever see a crack way up on a wall that you can't punch open, you go at that secret differently. You can't get to any of the secrets backwards, if that makes sense. And in the event that I did push my platforming abilities to their absolute limits, I would maybe get a time save of 5 seconds at most, which isn't really a time save in like a speedrunning context because people are beating this game in 20 minutes because you could just jump right into the air and kind of just blast your way to the exit. So I'm playing levels that speedrunners won't ever play, and these tactics are useless. Or you're met with a locked door that you come back to when a jump pad opens or something. The only real secrets in Doom Eternal that actually felt secretive were 2 objects hidden in the middle of a long free fall in 2 of the last levels of the game, requiring busting open a grate I barely caught a glimpse of repeatedly. I had to use a walkthrough to get these 2, but other than that, I won 100% of the rest of this game's levels all on my own. Even Doom 2016, I feel, had better hidden secrets. I've beaten that game twice and played through a bunch outside of that, but never once did I find this bejeweled Easter egg minigame in Doom 2016. Here, I'm pretty sure the only secrets I missed were some megaspheres. There's no hidden early weapons, there's no real subtlety with the rest of the game's collectibles or secrets, and the end result is that this is by far the easiest Doom to 100%. Outside of battle mode achievements and milestones, I reckon a player could unlock everything in the levels but the Ultra Nightmare reward in a 20-hour playthrough. I got all the challenges and collectibles in the 13-mission campaign in about 16 hours, but I didn't get all the weapon mastery abilities. And in my defense, some of these weapon masteries and some of these weapon mods are just useless. The plasma rifle has the heat blast from Doom 2016 back, but it now also has this additional mode where you can microwave a demon from the inside out. It costs a lot of ammo and takes forever. I don't know why you would grab that over heat blast, which just augments the experience. You use the plasma rifle the exact same way you used to, but now after a certain amount of rounds you just hit right click and you just obliterate all the demons in front of you. Likewise, in my opinion, the only reason to use micro missiles in the combat rifle is, again, speedruns. They figured out a way to attach both weapon mods at the same time, so they can use precision micro missiles which deal a ton of damage. The precision bolt is just way better in most situations, because it's super accurate, does a ton of damage, and the only real downside is it uses 6 bullets instead of 1, but that's not really that big of a deal. You can fire off 30 precision bolts with the full ammo capacity of the heavy rifle. And besides, you get the minigun. Later weapons don't have this problem. The minigun, the rocket launcher, they've all got fantastic weapon mods, the ballista too. I actually love the ballista in this. I'm so glad that they just took the best part of the Gauss cannon and made it its own weapon. All the later weapons' weapon mods feel good, but all the early weapons, they all suck. Why use full auto on a shotgun that only holds 16 shells at the beginning of the game? There's no reason to. You're out of ammo so fast. Sticky bombs, though, have a lot of utility. They only use 1 shell at a time. It's a great way to deal some splash damage with a shotgun, without, using it like a shotgun. As for the levels themselves, they're not bad. I only have 3. but that one's a little spoilery. Complaints with Doom Eternal's campaign, and they're really kinda petty. First off, for Hell on Earth, it sure as heck feels more like Lost in New York to me. Every Earth locale, including the final mission, feel identical to each other, barring a single mission set in the Arctic. They all look a whole lot like New York, despite the first one seemingly taking place by the San Andreas Fault, and the Super Gore-Nest level being set in Europe. Sure, whatever, maybe the whole world looks like Manhattan in 2161 or whatever, but I personally wish the earthly locales had even a few major differences. Here's a freebie. Stick some Japanese text on one of them instead of English text, and you've made Tokyo. I was also really kind of hoping for an Egyptian level. Maybe like the Slayer fights through a horde of enemies in a Cairo street market. Maybe they rummage through the hellified remains of the Sphinx or the Great Pyramid, something like that. Maybe a remake of Suburbs, where the Slayer has to navigate the carcasses of titans, strewn in a giant cornfield, with a big fight in a power plant or something where you use the transformers or furnaces as environmental hazards. Maybe a level where the Doom Slayer has to navigate the dilapidated husks of cruise ships fraught about the ocean, looking for supplies and getting subjected to literal ballroom blitzes during his trek from ship to avoid stepping foot on the docks, swarming with demonic presence. I don't know, they could have been a little more creative then, fighting through office buildings and skyscrapers. They don't really have much to set each other apart, save for one of them has a giant airbus on fire. Ark Complex is like one of the coolest levels in this game, but it doesn't excuse that there are 5 other levels that look like Ark Complex. Actually, I'm gonna be honest, another part of this game that I felt was hard to tell X apart from Y in was the soundtrack. It's as Mick of a Gordon soundtrack as you're going to get. A lot of, but not as much, even though they're all the same composer. A lot of the game's tracks bleed together in my head, and there's only 2 tracks that I walked away having gotten stuck in my head. They were BFG Division and At Doom's Gate. Neither is from Doom Eternal. I did go back and listen to a bunch of the game's music, and sure, the music in Sentinel Prime and the Gladiator boss make good use of that heavy metal choir they kept boasting about. Very little of this game's music outside of that has its own identity versus Doom 2016, whereas Bobby Prince's soundtrack for Doom 2 was so varied in terms of inspirations versus the first Doom's soundtrack, with my favorite piece on that soundtrack being the music in Underhalls. It's elevator music in a Doom game, and it just works. It fits. I was hoping for a more experimental soundtrack from Mick Gordon for the second new Doom game. We didn't get that. It doesn't really have its own identity. It just kind of feels like mostly missing tracks from Doom 2016 soundtrack. Anyways, my second complaint. Please nerf Marauders. Marauders have a lot of health, they deal a lot of damage, and their Hellhound moves way too fast and is a little bit too strong. I'll admit, I'm actually cool with a Doom enemy that makes me wait for openings and rewards my actual experience with the combat. It's a fantastic idea that prevents every encounter from feeling samey. But a fight against these guys without a fully loaded super shotgun is absolute hell and usually winds up with me dead. Again, I love this sort of attack defense going on with the Marauder. I would not ditch that. Keep that. The next Doom game better have an enemy like this. But in my opinion, if they either maybe cut 10 to 20% of their health, reduced their damage that they dealt on higher difficulties, slowed down the Hellhound just enough that I could get away from it instead of just getting bit repeatedly even when I'm trying to run from it, or let me chainsaw BFG or crucible them more readily at the cost of using up all the gas in the chainsaw and overheating it a bit, or causing whatever button I just pressed to kill this guy to take longer to recharge, or requiring that I catch him when he's off his guard. Something like that. I know you can crucible the Marauder if you catch him when he's off his guard. It's incredibly difficult. But if you could do that a little more readily, but it costs like a bunch of resources to do that, I'd like to stress, I'm not even asking for all of these. I really like the Marauder. I like that back and forth. I like that I can't just tear through him like every other enemy. I have to stop and assess what's going on. It feels great. He's just a little too good at his job, though. Just a little too good. Other than that, this roster isn't bad. I don't get why there's 3 different types of imp. The enemies, that is. Bosses are a little spoilery. We will talk about them in just a minute. First, we need to discuss cosmetics. They're alright. I don't exactly know how many there are, but one thing's for sure, there's not terribly many. I have Doomacorn via Twitch Prime. That's by far the most outlandish one of the bunch. The rest are either, hey, I wish the Doomslayer was a little more covered up, to, hey, I wish the Doomslayer pretty much just wore medieval robes and a chest piece, to, Why did Doom Guy show Imps' six-pack when he killed them? 2. Oh, look, he's red! And weapon skins are various forms of... It's red! Great. I get it. This sort of stuff was meant for battle mode, but you can use it in the campaign too. At the time I'm making this video, I haven't played battle mode. And I could go on about how I missed the old deathmatch, this and that. But I don't even play multiplayer games. It's a miracle I have a Discord server. So I'm not going to play this, and I can't really talk about it. It seems a little lacking. It's just the one mode, but it's whatever. I guess that leaves us down to the spoilery content. So here's your spoiler warning. Alright, first order of business. This guy and this guy are the same guy. Okay, that's neat. I really don't have any thoughts about this. Anyways, the bosses. The Gladiator is the first real boss. The Doom Hunters are regular enemies that are just kind of dolled up for your very first encounter. And man, the Gladiator is so cool. Lots of interesting mechanics and ideas, and for some reason, it's the only boss you glory kill. That was a cool way to punctuate the Cyber Demon and Spider Mastermind fights in 2016. But here the others kind of just fade into a cutscene when you land the final blow. The Conmaker is such a nothing fight. Get some minigun ammo, gun her down and you can blood punch her, then switch to the super shotgun and hook her away, rinse and repeat like 7 times, it's done. It's lame. And the Icon of Sin is arguably even lamer. It's a shoot at it until it dies fight. Essentially just chucking damage off the side of the arena until the game tells you you're done. The Icon of Sin has like very few memorable attacks, and really the crux of the fight is you're constantly fighting enemies while you're fighting the Icon of Sin, who's got like 1 billion health. You don't get the glory kill either of them. It's so frustrating, because that was such a cool way to punctuate the boss fights in Doom 2016. It kind of gave the game an identity. Everything kind of met the same fate by the Doomslayer's hands, and here they kind of just monologue at you while the Doomslayer just stares at him in a cutscene. Also, Final Sin. I hate this level. For a monstrosity seemingly capable of twisting reality around it to corrupt the landscape, eventually just pulling the whole universe into hell, you don't see it do any of that. The fullest extent of the damage that the Icon of Sin does is it walks through a building, and it blows it up. It leaves a bunch of rubble you have to leap around. That's not cool. A bus could do that. I was expecting the Icon of Sin to, like, twist the earth, giant bones come out of the ground, the dirt and concrete slowly becomes meat and cartilage. I was expecting the walls to be covered in eyes and tentacles as I progressed. But Final Sin is more or less identical to Hell on Earth, which sucks. And it gets back to my point. The environments have so little variety. The Hell on Earth environments have so little variety. The rest of this game looks fine. Hell on Earth is kind of just a single one note, and that includes Final Sin. There's nothing really truly demonic about Final Sin. It kind of just looks like a whole bunch of buildings exploded. I'm so glad that this is the extent of his hellified power. It's tell, not show, which bothers me, because id Software can show. By God, they can show. And they don't. Also, while every other enemy feels pretty well integrated into the game's meta, the Maker drones feel pretty out of place. They shower you with a ton of ammo on a headshot kill, more than chainsawing your usual enemy would produce, but they only appear in Urdak and the final Slayer gate, so you barely get time to appreciate their quirks. They're really only there for the Conmaker fight, as you need a lot of ammo in that one, but even then, chainsawing an enemy twice would do the job. They're so out of place. Why is the Maker drone here? If it was introduced earlier and was in Final Sin, I would be fine with that. It doesn't, I guess, make sense, canonically, why they would be in Final Sin, but they're only in one level otherwise. They spend all this time on an enemy that appears in only one level, and the enemy's quirk is they effectively take the role of chainsawing a mook in half. Speaking of out of place and Urdak, apparently Vega was God at one point. The Makers worshipped the Father, and Vega's backup drive from Doom 2016 fits perfectly in Maker tech. And as he powers down to help the Slayer leave Urdak, he realizes he's been the Father all along. That's dumb. You want to, like, go further with that, or are you just going to drop that and run? This plot is confusing. It's pants on head stupid. But this is the bit that's dumbest of all. I guess I get why knowing how to work Vega required a highly specialized doctorate in Doom 2016, but you could have said anything in that moment. And this is what they left you, and you're supposed to be like, wow. My final comment is going to be about the game's art style, but first let's bring back the non-spoiler folks. I'm including this all here to act as a buffer so people don't get spoiled trying to get back to the following timestamp. Bappity boop! Welcome back to the review. People who didn't want to get spoiled. My last comment is about the fact that this game's art style is just weird. It mishmashes the DOS Doom's aesthetic and the 2016 game's aesthetic, but the halvesies art style it kind of creates is a little confusing. What are the blue violets supposed to be? It's fine. I think it's actually neat that they went through the troubles to recreate the old look and modern hardware, but as a whole, it sums up my thoughts on this game. To explain them, we need the help of Sonic the Hedgehog. A sentence that's never been said in a Doom Eternal review. We will need Sonic the Hedgehog to help us explain my thoughts on Doom Eternal. Sonic 1 and Doom codified the series. They have some rough edges, I will admit, but they're very universally solid games. Doom 2 and Sonic 2 have a firmer grasp on the engine and its mechanics, and the result is a game that offers up a lot more fun, but is way more subjective due to their reliance on neat but simple set pieces to draw you in. Sonic CD and Doom 3 are overly derivative, and are much more methodical. They kind of speak to a different sort of fan. Sonic 3 and Doom 2016 have an over-reliance on gimmicks and marketing buzzwords, trying to coerce you into describing the game through heavily engineered marketed jargon. And then Sonic Mania and Doom Eternal are fan service. This is the Sonic Mania of Doom, featuring callbacks to so many weird parts of the Doom lore, including, among other things, scraps of the pistol from the first game's box art, the Doom novels that depicted the Doom Marine as the devout Catholic Flynn Taggart going on a journey of faith with the help of a teenager and his girlfriend, the Doom guy's girlfriend, not the teenager's girlfriend. I didn't read those novels, actually, because why would I? I didn't expect them to be relevant to Doom Eternal. And then, there's the frickin' skateboard from the now canon somehow Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 PC port, which contained the Doom guy, and it quotes, word for word, entire panels of the Doom comic book, not just taking 3 infamous words from it to build hype. This game is by far made by Doom fans for Doom fans, and Hugo Martin seems really excited about bringing back classic designs in Ultra HD, but some of this comes at the cost of this game's own originality. Doom Eternal is a game that lacks a lot of its own identity in the long run. Its music often feels like recycled tracks from Doom 2016. Its gameplay features too many mechanics to the point where it gets tiresome, and the pacing and difficulty kind of just flies all over the place as it tries to weave together a story using every non-RPG aspect of the Doom series, creating this chaotic, confused plot that lacks subtlety in places where it matters. Doom 2016, weird to say, had a kind of subtle, nuanced plot that just isn't here. Doom Eternal feels almost like Borderlands, with the sheer volume of plot it's trying to jam into this thing. The game ends on a, well, you'll fight more demons soon, dude. That's all you do. How about you go play some battle mode? No, leaving the fate of all these other characters in limbo. And with the DLC supposedly being a prequel to the rebooted Doom series, it's unlikely we'll see proper answers. Doom Eternal is definitely better than Doom 2016, and it's a better Doom 2 than Doom 2. That's about all I can muster. Ultimate Doom is so legendary in every regard, and I went into this expecting not to be blown away, and left pleasantly surprised. Counter Doom 2016, which was oversold to me by fans and the game's own marketing, people who thought I'd really dig the new direction for Doom, as I'm a fan of the old DOS games. But you can unlock both Doom 2 and the original in this game, and Ultimate Doom is the best Doom game, so this game is automatically the best one now that it's that plus more. In all seriousness, it's not worth $90. It's probably not even worth $60. I don't regret spending the money. It was essentially free, hey, sorry about the pandemic, money from the school. But I'd still recommend giving Doom Eternal a shot if you can get it on sale or borrow it from a friend if you're on console. Doom Eternal is available on PC through either the Bethesda launcher or Steam, as well as Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch coming this summer. It's a pretty good Doom, all things considered, but it requires some elbow grease and some dealing with some very frustrating game design and some very frustrating ideas to really get used to. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Patreon and social media links are in the description.